How's it going, everybody? I'm Andrew Robson, and you were watching RAKUYO's Deciduous Bonsai channel. On today's episode, I'm going to talk about ume, or Japanese flowering apricot, and why this might be a species that you want to avoid growing from scratch. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. All right, I'm here in my studio in Portland, Oregon. This is RAKUYO Bonsai, and our mission at RAKUYO is to grow and maintain some of the highest level deciduous bonsai in North America. And one of my favorite high level bonsai that I appreciate looking at the Kokofu show in Japan or looking at some of the top gardens in Japan is ume, or Japanese flowering apricot. I think these deciduous trees are some of the most strikingly beautiful plants in the whole bonsai world. The counterpoint between the really rough, craggly bark, the beautiful aged, weathered, shari or deadwood on the trunk, and the juxtaposition between all of that rugged, old, aged character and these big, beautiful, bright flowers that can perfume a whole room, that's just super, super magical. I wish I could have the ume that you see in Kokofu here at RAKUYO, but that's just not the case, and let me tell you why. The ume that you see, the high-level ume in Japan, there's all different quality levels of ume in Japan, but the ones that make it to the Kokofu, the ones that get into the top shows, the ones that you see at the top gardens are not created, they are found objects. Meaning they are collected from an old garden. They are collected from an old container plant that's just been sitting on someone's front porch for a generation or two. Sometimes they're even collected from the wild. And so, these ume in Japan, the really high-level ones, they're found very similar to how, Randy Knight finds all these beautiful Yamadori for us here in North America. But the ones that we tend to see here in the United States, unless they're illegally imported from that same scenario, the ones in the United States just don't live up to that character. They don't have the aged trunks. They don't have that really nice, rugged, kind of found object kind of appearance. And to me, the ume that are like that, and this tree here is actually really similar. This is an ume from Telperion Farms. It just feels a lot lacking compared to those ones that you see in Japan. And like I said, the roadmap is what's different. There are a lot of people in the US like me who really appreciate this plant, really appreciate this species, and wish we had more of them here in the United States. But what most of them are missing is that these are found, not grown. Now, the ones that are grown in Japan, they never make it into the Kokofu. They never make it into the top gardens. The ones that are grown in Japan are kind of sold off as commodities because ume has a really strong cultural significance in Japan. It's tied into New Year's along with pine and bamboo for that holiday season. And so ume as a species, the roadmap to getting something at the highest level, which is what we focus on here, just does not exist. You can't go walk around, I can't walk around the streets of Portland and just find an ume in an old container and do the same roadmap to success that they do for the highest level ume in Japan. And so that's why I recommend not growing them. The second reason I recommend not growing them is that this is one of the most difficult species to maintain and develop in a bonsai pot. Here at RAKUYO, we have probably more diversity of species than most other gardens in North America, deciduous speaking. And I work on a lot of different types of plants. Name a deciduous species, I probably worked on it, have it here, or maintained it as a bonsai. And ume, by far, is one of the most difficult. This is the reason in Japan that they have to graft them all the time, is because they're not reliable. They can't reliably defoliate, they can't reliably prune back, they can't reliably, trunk chop. These plants are incredibly unreliable, and it's probably one of the most terrible plants for bonsai culture, horticulturally speaking, that I've ever worked on. Now, in Japan, they put up with all of those things, and they go to effort. They go through all of the effort to graft these ume because they are so strikingly beautiful. The counterpoint between that beautiful flower and that old craggly bark and deadwood is just intoxicating. But to get those types of trunks, we just don't have them here in the US. So if you're interested in growing a fruiting or flowering plant, there are species that work great. I have a Kojo no Mai here in the garden, which is a beautiful dwarf variety of cherry that is the polar opposite of ume. It flowers incredibly reliably. It has a natural small leaf. The leaf doesn't get beat up throughout the growing season. You can prune it back, defoliate it. It's really reliable. It's going to do exactly what you expect out of it. There are beautiful flowering plants that are similar, but if you want a really high quality ume, if you want something that could get into a US National, get into an Expo, you're probably not going to get one by growing your way there. You have to get one by finding your way there, like finding a found object. And we just don't have that possibility here in the US. What you might be able to do is find an old craggly prunus trunk, maybe a Prunus americana that's in a cow pasture in eastern United States, and maybe it has a lot of character. You collect that old interesting trunk and you graft ume onto it. But other than that, you're not going to take cuttings and grow a high-level bonsai. I just don't see that roadmap. That roadmap does not exist in the Kokofu show in Japan, at least on a large scale. So I want to be positive here, but I want to save you, if you love this plant as much as I do, I want to save you the heartache of growing this for years and years and years and years and not really ever getting anywhere. You won't be able to follow that roadmap because it's a different roadmap that they use in Japan. What you can do is take an air layer of a Japanese maple and create a Kokofu prize-winning tree in 20, 25 years. That roadmap does exist. There are several individuals, Oishi, Ebihara, that have done that. There are plants that you can grow in a lifetime that will work for you, not against you. Ume just happens not to be one of those plants. Now, I say all of this sitting here next to a decent ume, but this ume is what I would call very average. This is an ume that I have here in the garden. This came from Telperion Farms. And this is the only ume that I got out of Telperion that ever kind of ended up and did something. I worked at Telperion Farms during and after my apprenticeship. And at the farm, you know, we had 20, 30 ume in the ground. And they just, even field growing them, they just were not reliable. You'd cut them back at the right time and they would just die back to the ground and send up new suckers. This was like the 1 out of 20 or 30 that became something. And so those odds are not great. The odds for a Japanese maple are going to be way, way higher. I'm not saying it's impossible, but what I am saying is for the average person, the roadmap to create a really high-level ume does not exist without finding that interesting trunk to begin with. So I hope you learned something in this episode. I don't want to discourage you from appreciating this plant. Like I said, it's one of my favorite species, but you're just not going to grow your way into something really beautiful in a lifetime. And I really do believe that for ume. I hope there's people out there that can prove me wrong, but knowing everything I do about deciduous, I just can't think of that roadmap without grafting onto another type of prunus that's already pretty interesting. So I hope you learned something in this episode. This is a little bit of tough love, but I think it's needed because there are a lot of people out there who appreciate this plant as much as I do, who are, you know, growing and collecting all of these interesting, lovely ume cultivars. Like I said, there's just not a roadmap to success that I can see. So I hope you can take this tough love and apply it to your bonsai practice at home. You've been watching RAKUYO's Deciduous Bonsai channel. I hope you can take all these things that we talk about and apply them at home to your bonsai practice to make your trees better and to create high-level bonsai like what we do here at RAKUYO. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.